Why don't we now then go ahead and move into the new DTC features, and we're going to start with the DTC dynamic load balancing using RTD and SNMP.
Thanks, Bob. And before we do that, I want to answer or make a comment about the Q&A. Just remind everybody that we've got the Q&A panel. We've actually got a question Christopher asked about, is GSLB available to anyone with a DTC license, or does it require a separate license? So GSLB is the sort of the industry standard term for what DTC is, right? So yes, DTC is what is the license for doing GSLB. So if we jump into the health monitors, the dynamic health monitors, this was an 8.2 feature, and 8.2 has been out for about 7-8 months now. 8.3 came out about a month ago, and one of the things was being able to have a little more dynamic load balancing ability using these health monitors. So the round trip delay one is it measures the response to the server and keeps track of the average response time coming back to see if there's a latency between the name server and the application server. So we check that and then kind of track that, and you can set up to do and I'll jump over to the demo. You can set up to do the health checks and determine how you want to do that. So we've got these health monitors here, and we've got a lot of our default monitors, and you can create your own and build out ICMP or TCP and specify, for instance, if it's a web application, I would build one that's HTTP on port 80 or 443. And then I've got my SNMP monitor. So this is set up to monitor a couple Ubuntu servers that I have, and I've got SNMP enabled, and I just pulled down the list of all the OIDs and decided I'm going to use this one. This is CPU load over a 5-minute average. So I kind of pointed at that, and what DTC then does when I assign it to a pool is in the GUI here. I'll assign it to a pool, and then it'll start from these name servers. It'll start doing SNMP health checks to my server. So here you can see the load on my server. It comes back at about 30-some%. They're about the same. Those servers are running about everything's about the same. So it'll tell you what the average is, and Joe mentioned the reporting, and you could build reports even to see what the average load is on these servers, or whatever other SNMP OID you decide to monitor. Maybe you're doing the number of TCP connections. So and then from here you could just go to this pool and say I want to load balance for this pool using using ratio. We've got a number of other load balancing methods, whether it's round robin, global availability, which is everything goes to 1 until it fails, and then everything goes to the next one. So I've got, at the pool level, I'm using SNMP to decide how I want to load balance. So let me jump into the let me go back to here. Let me jump into the next one and talk about the multi-tier health check support. So when you're setting up these health checks, you kind of have some options as to do I want to monitor at a pool level or at a server level? And you can do them both, and you can set health checks up to say from the pool I want to monitor. I'm going to use the SNMP monitor, but I can also add additional monitors here. Let's say I want to monitor my internet router, or monitor something out on the internet to make sure that my link is up. So this way, if the server health is good but the link is up, we can mark this pool as down, right? So you're able to build these custom monitors to decide what you want to determine as up and down. one of the new things we added in 8.3 is our being able to do state persistence, and we've had it for a while, but now we sync them. We sync the state of these persistence tables across members. So if you've got a bunch of name servers in different locations, and you want to have them all aware of persistence for all these applications, then you could come here and say, I want to turn persistence on and set, you know, a setting for how long I want to have it, and then it'll sync that across all your members. The next thing we added in 8.3 is being able to support SRV records. SRV records are typically important in Active Directory and voice over IP type applications. So with 8.3, I could tell it that for these zones, I want to support service records, and then I can create what we call the LBDN for something like a domain controller, and have my domain controller availability kind of be everywhere. And then with the extensible attributes in the database, you can determine where a user is to which domain controller they get load balanced to. The next one is being able to import and export DTC data via our CSV. We've had some customers that have wanted to be able to migrate maybe off of an F5 or a NetScaler to this, but want to be able to create a bunch of objects all at the same time. So we added this feature, and for demo purposes, I created a little CSV in Excel. I basically started with this one, and then like Excel let you do, I just kind of dragged these down and did all that, and dragged these ones down as well, and then from here I can go to the import tab, and Joe mentioned that everything in our box is wizard driven. So even doing something as usually as complex as importing a bunch of data, here I can just say I want to import some data, and I'm going to select a file, and I'm going to hit open, and then we're going to hit next. Just hit that in case there's any errors that pop up, and then we'll hit the import. And we'll let this run for a second. Okay, so my import is done, and now I've got a bunch of additional servers here, and now I could take these servers and I could add them to one of these pools or do whatever. So.
Hey Scott, if I could just add something, folks, when I first looked at this, the particular feature, I thought, well, okay, there's probably limited usability for it. I know Scott spoke about the use case of being able to migrate from an existing solution into here. But some of the customers I've been working with actually have a configuration similar to this, where there's literally hundreds of servers that they want to make, let's say, bulk changes. So let's say they want to change, 50 servers to a different subnet. Well, you could do it in the GUI one by one, but why not use the full functionality that we have, being able to export this data in the CSV format, make your changes, and then import it right back in. Right? So it's a great way to just work within the context of DTC without necessarily affecting everything else within the grid.
Hey Joe, that's really good. We did have another question. I'm not sure if it got answered, but Tom Daly asked for export to provide a template for future changes, set up DTC entries via GUI and export it out. So you guys want to talk to that? He also asked around the CSV header lines for server pools, LBDN, and the associated sub options for each reserved command. Scott or Joe, you guys want to speak to that?
Yeah. So I was going to show what the CSV export looked like. This would probably give you an idea of what an import, you know, if you could just re-import this. So it kind of has some it has pretty much every option that you could create. It's got every option here that you could modify. So you could, you know, you could kind of build this out. Mine is pretty simple. I just did A and B, I think, and then I kind of nuked everything else. But yeah, you could set that up, and you could do it here. You know, we've also got our API, and I know we have a lot of customers who do a lot of these changes using the API versus, you know, versus this, or even worse, versus manually creating a million things.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, Scott, we also have a separate CSV guide as well, right? That'll show you, you know, the different formats, not just specific to DTC, but just in general, you know, kind of how to typically set up, you know, the various sections of a, you know, typical grid import tool or import CSV file, what it would look like.
Right. Yeah. We do. So the next one is the backup and restore, and we added this in 8.3 as well to be able to simply, you know, we've had a grid backup and we've had a reporting backup, but we've never had the ability to just back up, and more importantly, to be able to restore the DTC config. So here in the grid tab, where you would come here and do a backup, you could do a DTC backup here and just the same do a restore. So if I went here and did a manual backup, it's simply just going to do a DTC backup and save it locally here, and then I could do the same, just hit restore, and it would restore all my data exactly as it is.
All right. Hey, thanks, Scott, for sharing. I wanted to bring to light some new functionality as well with NIOS 8.3. So DTC actually works in the government cloud environment. And so we offer support working within a number of FedRAMP infrastructure clouds, especially with AWS GovCloud and Microsoft Azure Government. And so that's pretty important because it really emphasizes Infoblox's ongoing commitment to NIOS, number one, and it also demonstrates our dedication to the top security standards required by federal, state, and local government agencies, integrators, and of course the supply chain. So that's really important. And in terms of benefit, it certainly supports the government cloud initiatives that many government agencies are now having to address, and it helps to ensure a smooth customer experience, especially in terms of meeting government requirements. So I wanted to just bring out a few facts here. You know, we've operated in Amazon Web Services GovCloud since August 2016, and we are now certified with Microsoft Azure Government. We have a vDiscovery capability that supports that. We've also recently passed FIPS 140-2 requirements, and those have been submitted. We're just waiting for an official announcement from NIST. And then there's also the Common Criteria EAL2 certification. We've been actually Common Criteria certified since NIOS 7.1, and we recertify with each major release. And then, of course, there's the Defense Information Systems Agency, or DISA. Some of our large customers, especially serving government, want to know about that because we're on the approved products list for DoD infrastructure. So we continue to make that commitment to support government. And for those that are on the call that are interested in more information around back office or cloud DDI infrastructure guidance, or perhaps solutions that specifically relate to government, you can certainly reach out to the federal account team and get more information. But wanted to just share a little bit about that in terms of our government initiatives. And so, Scott, why don't we move on and just, again, talk about Infoblox DTC. Why is it important? I think, Joe, you were going to speak to this a little bit. Of course, there are some advantages around uptime. We talked about that, performance, centralized management, and of course, a lower cost with easy deployment. Can you walk through some of the differences that we have relative to some other competitors on the market?
Sure. So, again, the first advantage, like you mentioned earlier, ensures app uptime. So